Welcome to our deep dive into the life of John D. Rockefeller.
Yeah, a titan of American industry and philanthropy.
And we're going deep into Ron Chernow's biography, Titan, to do it.
You know, it's a fascinating read.
You mentioned something about Rockefeller being a stickler for secrecy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he had some kind of coded language.
It's true. Chernow really had his work cut out for him trying to decode the man.
Wow.
Rockefeller was incredibly guarded, but Chernow uncovered a trove of letters from those closest to him. And they contained a much more complex and at times even scandalous story.
Scandalous, huh?
Especially when it comes to the inner workings of Standard Oil.
Okay, so we're already talking about secrecy and scandal, and we haven't even gotten to Standard Oil yet.
Right.
But let's rewind to his childhood.
Okay.
I was really struck by the figure of his father, Devil Bill.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is the guy who fathered one of the world's wealthiest individuals.
Well, the contrast is certainly striking, isn't it? We often see these patterns of inheritance. But Devil Bill was something else entirely.
Really?
A snake oil salesman, a charmer,
Huh.
a rogue.
Wow.
Imagine this larger-than-life figure looming over young John Dee's childhood.
And you think that influenced Rockefeller's famously guarded personality?
Oh, absolutely. Chernow highlights this chilling anecdote where Bill encourages John Dee to jump from his high chair, only to let him fall. And then he quips, "Never trust anyone completely, not even me."
Wow. Talk about tough love.
Right.
So that's got to have some kind of impact on a kid.
Imagine the impact of that lesson on a young mind.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the environment in which Rockefeller's worldview was shaped.
That's heavy stuff. So with a father like that, it's fascinating how Rockefeller found solace and structure in the Baptist Church.
Yeah, and this wasn't just any time for the Baptist Church. It was a period marked by some really intense debate.
Like what?
The schism over slavery, the rise of all these social reform movements,
Right.
and Rockefeller's deep involvement, given some of his later business dealings. Well,
It's a little contradictory.
it might seem that way,
Mm-hmm.
but it offers a window into the values he carried with him.
Values that were also influenced by his mother, Eliza.
Oh, yeah. She's a fascinating figure in her own right.
The excerpts paint her as being a strict disciplinarian.
She certainly was.
This anecdote about continuing a whipping for next time,
Oh, no.
something else.
Eliza was certainly a product of her time, but these anecdotes really help us to understand the family dynamics at play here.
Okay.
You have Bill, this flamboyant figure, potentially involved in some dubious dealings,
Right.
and Eliza, this moral compass instilling a sense of order and frugality.
So you have to wonder how these contrasting influences played out in shaping Rockefeller's character. Speaking of Eliza's emphasis on frugality,
Yeah.
it makes that story of Rockefeller's job day even more interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
He celebrated the anniversary of his first job more than his own birthday.
More than his own birthday.
What's that about?
It wasn't just about finding any job. This was about proving his worth,
Okay.
establishing his independence, especially from a father like Devil Bill.
Yeah.
Remember that line from the biography?
Good to know.
That outburst about being bound to be rich.
Right, right.
That wasn't just ambition talking. That was a declaration of self-reliance,
Huh.
forged in those early struggles for recognition.
Recognition from his father.
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to Standard Oil.
Ah, Standard Oil.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
Those early partnerships, particularly the one with his brother-in-law, Stephen Harkness.
Connections and timing are always crucial. But it's important not to underestimate Rockefeller's business acumen.
Oh, sure.
I mean, this is the same Harkness who amassed a fortune from liquor taxes
Right.
just before joining forces with the staunchly teetotal Rockefeller.
Oh, the irony.
A little bit, wouldn't you say?
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to the story. And then there's the South Improvement Company. This is where we start to see those ruthless tactics come into play.
This is where things get interesting.
Backroom deals, pressure tactics, even death threats.
The South Improvement Company really embodies this convergence of Rockefeller's business genius and his willingness to operate
Okay.
in a very legal gray area, shall we say.
It's a far cry from the world of Baptist hymns.
Well, this was the era of robber barons, after all.
Right.
And to succeed, one had to play the game.
So how'd he do it?
His manipulation of the railroads, for one,
Okay.
playing them against each other to secure preferential rates.
Pretty ingenious.
Ingenious, yes, but morally.
Morally, that's a different story. And let's not forget his infamous silence in the face of public scrutiny.
Oh, yeah.
It's remarkable how he thought that projected strength.
It backfired spectacularly.
It is.
Oh, yeah, fueled public anger and made him appear even more guilty.
How so?
It's a classic example of how misreading public sentiment can really shape a legacy. His inability to grasp the public's distrust of his growing power would come back to haunt him.
Time and time again. And as Standard Oil's power grew, so did the scrutiny.
From all sides.
Even from within his own family.
Oh, absolutely.
His own brother Frank became a vocal critic.
The family dynamics are fascinating, aren't they?
Yeah.
Frank's resentment, the strained relationship with their father.
It really does make you think about the personal cost of ambition.
This wasn't just business. It was deeply personal.
And yet, amidst all of this, we see the rise of his philanthropic endeavors.
It seems like such a complete 180.
Right.
From ruthless oil tycoon to generous benefactor.
It makes you wonder, were these acts of genuine remorse or a calculated attempt to rehabilitate his image?
I don't know. It's hard to say. But Rockefeller's religious convictions were deeply held.
Oh, absolutely. He truly believed in using his wealth for good.
Okay.
But his early philanthropy, it lacked focus.
Right.
It was almost haphazard in its approach.
Mm.
And then Frederick T. Gates arrived. And that changed everything. Gates.
The architect of Rockefeller's philanthropic legacy.
Tell me more.
Gates brought structure and strategy to Rockefeller's giving.
How so?
He understood that for true impact, you need to go beyond handouts.
Right.
You need to address systemic issues.
I see.
This wasn't about charity. This was about lasting, meaningful change.
And their partnership transformed medical research, education, countless fields. It's astonishing that Rockefeller, the college dropout, would leave such a mark on academia.
It's quite the twist, right?
Yeah.
And it really highlights a key theme we see throughout his life. This drive to consolidate,
Okay.
to back strongest to achieve the greatest good. There's this excerpt where he talks about favoring strengths over weakness.
Okay.
That's pure Rockefeller,
Really?
whether we're talking about business or philanthropy.
It's a fascinating paradox. And then there's the story of him choosing a $14,000 check over a Rolls Royce.
A classic Rockefeller story.
How do we reconcile his frugality with such immense wealth?
Well, frugality was ingrained in him from childhood.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to a shift in priorities, don't you think?
Yeah.
He no longer needed material possessions to validate his success.
So where was he building his legacy?
He was building it elsewhere.
But that legacy would become much more complicated, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
With Ida Tarbell's expose,
Oh, yes.
which painted him as a ruthless monster.
A completely different narrative.
It's incredible how these conflicting narratives continue to shape his image even today.
It speaks to the power of storytelling and this enduring fascination with figures like Rockefeller.
Yeah.
Was he a hero or a villain?
Right.
A product of his time or a timeless archetype?
Good question.
Maybe the answer, as is often the case, lies somewhere in between.
You know, it's striking how this theme of duality runs through so much of Rockefeller's story.
Yeah.
This blend of sharp business acumen
Right.
and profound personal faith.
It really is.
It's a fascinating contradiction.
It's like these two sides of him are constantly at odds.
Right.
On one hand, you have this shrewd strategist
Right.
playing the business game with cunning and ruthlessness,
Yeah.
building a monopoly that reshaped American industry.
Of course.
And then on the other hand, you have this devout Baptist,
Right.
deeply committed to his faith and dedicated to using his wealth for good.
It's hard to reconcile the two, isn't it?
It really is.
And yet, both were genuine aspects of his character. His religious beliefs weren't just for show.
Right.
They profoundly shaped his worldview.
Okay.
Remember those maxims Eliza drilled into him?
Like what?
Willful waste makes woeful want.
Oh, wait.
These weren't just sayings, they were principles he carried into every facet of his life.
Really?
They influenced his personal finances, his business decisions,
Right.
even his approach to philanthropy.
That's a really good point.
Isn't it?
It's like those values instilled by his mother
Yeah,
provided a framework for how he navigated the world,
exactly.
whether he was building an oil empire or funding a medical research institute.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Speaking of which, his approach to philanthropy was fascinating.
It really was.
It wasn't just about writing checks.
No.
It was about strategic giving, about
Yeah.
maximizing impact.
He was applying business principles to charity.
That's what it seems like.
Precisely. Rockefeller brought that same drive for efficiency and consolidation to his philanthropic work.
Okay.
He saw the bigger picture.
So he wasn't content with just alleviating symptoms. He
Exactly.
wanted to address root causes, create systemic change.
Whether it was eradicating hookworm in the American South or establishing the University of Chicago,
Wow.
as this beacon of academic excellence, his goal was to create a lasting legacy
That's incredible.
that extended far beyond his own lifetime.
It's like he viewed philanthropy as an investment, one with the potential for enormous social returns.
Absolutely.
And speaking of investments, I'm curious to circle back to his relationship with his father, Devil Bill.
Okay.
We've talked about how that upbringing shaped his personality, but do you think it also influenced his business dealings?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah,
The shadow of Devil Bill looms large over Rockefeller's story.
it does.
Their relationship was this complex mix of admiration and resentment, affection, and a good deal of understandable estrangement.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Bill, with his charisma and, let's say, questionable business practices,
Right.
taught young John Dee some valuable lessons.
Okay.
But he also instilled in him a deep sense of mistrust,
Okay.
a belief that relying on anyone else was a recipe for disaster.
Wow. Then that ties in with the whole secrecy thing we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
Like he learned early on that knowledge is power
Oh, yeah.
and that revealing your hand is a weakness.
Exactly. Remember that chilling anecdote about Bill making John Dee jump from his high chair?
Yeah.
Only to let him fall and then utter those words?
Never trust anyone.
Never trust anyone completely, not even me.
Oh, man.
That's a defining moment in understanding their dynamic. What do you think?
It's a brutal lesson.
It is.
And one that clearly stayed with him.
No, absolutely.
But it's not as simple as just emulating his father, right?
Right.
There's a sense that Rockefeller also wanted to distance himself from Devil Bill's more unsavory dealings.
You're right. It's a push and pull. On one hand, he inherited his father's entrepreneurial spirit,
Right.
that willingness to take risks to break the mold. But on the other hand, he seemed determined to prove that he could achieve success
Okay.
without resorting to the same shady tactics that dog his father's reputation.
Interesting.
Remember those stories about Devil Bill potentially dealing in counterfeit money?
Oh, yeah.
That's a far cry from the image of moral rectitude that John Dee carefully cultivated for himself.
That's true.
Right.
It's like he was trying to forge his own path.
Yeah.
To prove that he was a different breed,
Exactly.
even as he grappled with the legacy of his father.
And this internal conflict, this push and pull, plays out in other areas of his life as well,
Really?
particularly his relationships with his family.
Right. The family dynamics are fascinating.
Aren't they?
You have the strained relationship with his brother Frank,
Right.
who vehemently opposed the methods used to build Standard Oil,
Of course.
eventually becoming one of its most vocal critics.
Exactly.
Then there's his relationship with Seti, his wife,
Right.
who seems to have been a source of stability and support amidst all the chaos.
It sounds like it.
And of course, there's Junior.
Right. Caught between the legacy of his father and forging his own path.
Junior's story is particularly intriguing.
It is, isn't it?
Here he is, born into unimaginable wealth and privilege,
Right.
yet also burdened by the ethical implications of how that fortune was amassed.
Exactly.
It's as though he was constantly wrestling with the sins of the father.
He saw the ruthlessness firsthand,
Yeah.
the impact it had on people's lives.
Right.
And he seemed determined to use his inheritance differently
Really?
to forge a different kind of legacy.
And this difference in approach led to some fascinating tensions within the family,
It did.
particularly between Junior and Senior.
Right.
You see this most clearly in their contrasting views on philanthropy.
Absolutely.
While Senior was a product of his time,
Right.
believing in the power of big business and strategic giving,
Right.
Junior was drawn to a more progressive approach, one that emphasized social justice
Yeah.
and empowering marginalized communities.
Interesting.
And that brings us to Abby Aldrich, Junior's wife,
Abby.
who played such a pivotal role in his life and in shaping his worldview.
A force in her own right.
Tell me more about her influence.
Well, Abby was a breath of fresh air for Junior, you could say.
Oh, yeah.
She challenged his assumptions, broadened his horizons,
Okay.
introduced him to a world beyond the boardrooms of Standard Oil.
House.
She was a champion of the arts, a passionate advocate for social causes.
Interesting.
And she encouraged Junior to embrace a more compassionate and inclusive vision for their philanthropy.
It's incredible to think about how their relationship,
I know.
this clash of perspectives and passions,
Yeah.
helped shape the future of philanthropy.
Indeed. And it wasn't always easy.
It wasn't.
Their differing views led to some clashes,
Like what?
particularly when it came to Junior's burgeoning art collection.
Oh, interesting.
Senior, with his ingrained sense of frugality, must have raised an eyebrow or two
Yeah, I can imagine.
when Junior approached him for that $1 million loan to buy Chinese porcelain.
Wow.
Right.
It's a testament to their bond, though,
It is.
that Senior ultimately supported Junior's passions,
Yeah.
even if he didn't always understand them.
But let's talk more about those philanthropic endeavors.
Okay.
The Rockefellers, both Senior and Junior, had an immeasurable impact on the world through their giving.
It's true.
Their foundations funded groundbreaking research, revolutionized education, and championed social reform movements that continue to shape our world today.
It's amazing.
The scale of their giving is staggering.
Really?
From the General Education Board, which aimed to improve education in the United States, to the Rockefeller Foundation, which tackled global issues like public health and agriculture, their impact is undeniable.
It is.
And yet, their legacy is not without its complexities,
That's a great point.
isn't it?
It's crucial to acknowledge that even with the best of intentions,
Of course.
philanthropy can be a double-edged sword.
It can.
On one hand, the Rockefellers' wealth, amassed through a system that often exploited workers and stifled competition,
Right.
was now being used to address some of the very problems that system created.
Exactly. It raises questions about power dynamics,
It does.
about who gets to decide what's best for society,
Right.
and whether philanthropy can ever truly be separated from the way the wealth was accumulated in the first place.
That's a great question.
Right.
It's a debate that continues to rage today.
It does.
How do we reconcile the immense good that philanthropy can achieve with the uncomfortable truth that it's often built on a foundation of inequality?
It's a question with no easy answers.
That's true.
But by examining the successes and failures of the Rockefeller philanthropies, we can at least start to grapple with these complex issues.
Okay.
We can learn from their mistakes, appreciate their innovations, and use their story as a springboard
Okay.
for a broader conversation about the role of wealth and social responsibility in the 21st century.
And that's what makes studying history so rewarding.
It is.
It's not just about memorizing dates and names.
No.
It's about understanding the complexities of human nature, the interplay of power and morality, and how the choices of individuals can ripple through time to shape the world we live in today. It's amazing how, as we move into the later years of Rockefeller's life, public perception of him kind of shifts again.
It really does.
He goes from this titan of industry, often demonized in the press,
Right.
to almost a beloved figure in American life.
It's true.
How does that happen?
It's a fascinating transformation. I think part of it is simply time.
Okay.
As the controversies of Standard Oil fade into the past,
Right.
a different narrative emerges. One focused on his philanthropy.
Right.
But it's more than just the sheer amount of money he gave away.
Okay.
It's about the way he went about it.
Okay.
This wasn't like haphazard charity.
Right.
It was strategic, thoughtful, aimed at creating lasting impact.
So people started to see that.
People recognized that. And
Yeah.
he was living in a very different world now, too.
Yeah, this is the Roaring '20s, a
Exactly.
time of, economic boom and this fascination with wealth and success.
Precisely. Rockefeller, despite his humble beginnings and austere lifestyle,
Right.
he really embodied this ideal of the self-made man, a product of hard work, determination.
Okay.
He became a symbol of American ingenuity.
Right, like proof that even in a rapidly changing world, those core values still resonated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a public image makeover either.
So there's a sense that he genuinely mellowed with age.
I think so. There are all those stories about him handing out dimes to children, playing golf with celebrities,
Right.
even allowing himself to be filmed for newsreels.
That's so different from the John D. Rockefeller of like 30 years earlier.
It paints a very different picture from the stern, guarded figure of his earlier years.
It does.
There's this wonderful anecdote from this period that I keep coming back to.
Oh, yeah.
A luxurious yacht is sailing by,
Okay.
and someone remarks on how impressive it is. Rockefeller replies, "Wasn't that a beautiful rain we had last night?"
Wow.
Such a simple story.
It is.
But I think it speaks volumes about this newfound appreciation for the simpler things in life.
Right.
A shift in perspective that's, almost palpable in his later years.
It's like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders.
It really is. And this newfound lightness,
Yeah.
it extended to his passions as well.
Oh, like his love for golf.
His love for golf was
He
legendary.
is obsessed.
He even made a pact with his physician, Dr. Bigger, to play around on his 100th birthday.
No way. Talk about dedication.
It speaks to his enduring spirit.
Yeah.
His refusal to be defined by age.
Right. And it's not like he was just puttering around the golf course either.
Oh, no. He approached golf with the same meticulousness and competitive drive that he brought to the oil industry.
Always striving for improvement.
Always up for a challenge.
I love that. It's remarkable, too, how even as he's embracing these simpler pleasures,
Yeah.
he remains so actively engaged with his philanthropic endeavors.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
He may have stepped back from the day-to-day operations, but he was far from a passive observer.
So he's still reading reports?
Constantly. Seeking advice, staying informed about the progress of the various foundations he'd established.
His vision remained a driving force, even as his son, Junior, took on a more prominent role.
Absolutely.
And that dynamic between father and son is fascinating in this later period. It's almost a reversal of roles, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. You have Senior, once this towering figure, now content to offer guidance and support from a distance.
And Junior, hesitant at first, grappling with the weight of his family's legacy.
Right. Now steps into the spotlight, becoming the public face of the Rockefeller philanthropies.
It speaks to their evolving relationship,
It does.
the passing of the torch to a new generation.
And this new generation brought its own set of challenges and complexities.
Of course.
Junior, like his father, had his share of personal struggles.
Right.
The loss of his beloved Seti,
Right.
the estrangement from his brother Frank, the complexities of raising his own children amidst unimaginable wealth and privilege.
It's a good reminder that even the most powerful families aren't immune to the ups and downs of life. The joys and sorrows, the triumphs and the heartbreaks.
The things that shape us all.
Exactly.
The Rockefeller story, for all its epic scope and historical significance, it's also a deeply personal one. A reminder that even titans of industry are ultimately human.
We all are.
Shaped by the same forces that shape us all.
And their story is so intertwined with the story of America itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They rise to prominence during a time of immense change. Industrial revolution, burgeoning capitalism.
Right.
Their fortune, built on oil,
Yeah.
becomes this symbol of both the promise and the perils of this new economic order.
And then they dedicate so much of their lives to trying to fix those perils.
Right. They spend a significant portion of that fortune trying to address some of the very problems that this rapid industrialization created.
Inequality, poverty, lack of access to education and healthcare.
It's a complicated legacy, isn't it?
It really is, one that reflects both the opportunities and the inherent contradictions of American capitalism.
And one that continues to spark debate and discussion even today.
John D. Rockefeller. Ruthless businessman, devout Baptist, conflicted son, devoted husband and father, visionary philanthropist.
He really does defy easy categorization.
He does, and that's what makes studying his life so compelling.
It is.
It's not about passing judgment.
No.
It's about understanding the nuances, the complexities, the contradictions that make up a human life.
Rockefeller's story reminds us that history is not a simple narrative of heroes and villains,
Right.
but rather a tapestry woven from countless individual choices,
Some made with good intentions, others driven by ambition, circumstance.
all contributing to this rich and often contradictory fabric of human experience.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the life of John D. Rockefeller,
Yes.
one question lingers. How do we reconcile the pursuit of wealth and power with the responsibility to use those resources for good,
It's a question that continues to resonate.
especially today?
It's a question that each generation must grapple with.
We do.
And perhaps Rockefeller's story, for all its triumphs and its flaws,
Yeah,
can serve as a catalyst for that conversation.
I like that. By examining his life, his choices, his impact,
Right.
we can begin to explore our own relationship with ambition, with responsibility,
And with this enduring challenge.
of leaving the world a better place than we found it. What a thought-provoking journey this has been. From the oil fields of Pennsylvania to the halls of academia, from the cutthroat world of 19th century business to the burgeoning field of 20th century philanthropy.
It's quite a story.
John D. Rockefeller's life and legacy offer a compelling and often contradictory window into a pivotal period in American history. As we move forward, let's remember that the past is not just a collection of stories.
Right. It's so much more than that.
It's a source of valuable lessons, a reminder that our actions, however small, have the power to shape the world around us. Keep asking questions.